Welcome to All Indefinitely, interviews and insights to empower you to achieve personal and professional success through friendships, relationships, and marriage. Here are your hosts, Anwar and Siana.
Welcome back.
Yay.
We're here for another episode, and let me tell you something. I mean, I'm liking this coffee shop setup. I mean, occasionally there's some noise, coming back and forth from the traffic in front of us, but
the coffee is worth it.
Yes, and grab your coffee because this is an interesting conversation that we're going to have today.
Yep.
Relationships versus being married.
Yeah, but I think you need to start by telling us what does being married means to you.
So, for the longest time, and then this is what originally the idea for the podcast originated, and where when I started with my book, was talking about this topic very much. Is like kind of what is it to be married, and it's something that turned into a big, it keeps growing and growing and growing, and my understanding of it, is changing constantly, but it took a while to get to where I am today. And that is that what we view marriage is as a license, makes no sense in today's day and age.
Right.
What do you think about marriage? I mean, but let's say before you met me, because I probably had so many conversations with you about it. But like, when you think about marriage, what do you think about?
Well, now I need to clarify this because last time we talked about the elements of marriage. So when you're asking about marriage right now, are you asking about those elements that we were talking about, or you're asking about the legal marriage?
No, I'm talking about like when you're visualizing yourself as a young girl and you're saying, I want to get married one day. Mm-hmm. What are you visualizing? What is that look like? What does it look like?
A big wedding with a nice white dress.
Right. I mean, okay.
But no, like, from a very young age, I would like to say like 13 maybe, I understood that the paper had no purpose, like the license,
okay.
And I always thought that I don't need it. Like, why, if you love the person, you want to spend the rest of your life with that person, whatever the case might be, why would you need to sign a paper for that, And I mean, interestingly enough, I had to get married with the paper and not with a wedding, but that was a different case, And but yeah, definitely. Like,
well, we'll talk about that with me. What happened?
Well, we wanted to go to Spain, and I'm a Spanish citizen. And so for my husband, in that case, to be able to go to Spain, we had to be married. So that's what we did. But that was the whole reason why we got married. Like, we loved each other, but we weren't prepared to have a wedding at the time. We actually didn't even have a wedding. We just went to the courthouse, signed, and that's it.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Using that same example, prior to you signing that paper, did you consider him your husband? Did you introduce him as your husband? Just what do you say to people?
No, back then I didn't know you. So of course was, even being my husband, I would tell people he was my boyfriend because the word husband sounded like so old to me. I'm like, I don't feel you like my husband. We've never had a wedding, like, like a real party, It was just like sign the papers. So in my mind, he was not my husband. He was my boyfriend. And we lived together. We had, the same bank account and all that. But still, like, in my mind, he was my boyfriend.
Yeah. And this is where I started because when I went, because I was in a 5-year marriage, and when I got a divorce, I started to ask myself, what was the whole paper about? It was different because the part that I was married legally hit me at the divorce.
Right.
And the reason why it hit me at the divorce, it wasn't money or anything that, the separation of assets or anything like that. Nothing like that. What hit me was when I went to the courthouse and had to go before a judge who's just some guy.
Right.
And talk to that judge and fill out the applications and pay for the processing. And then this judge granted me permission to get a divorce.
Yeah.
So then I was like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever heard of or ever went through, was going through a process where we were already going through emotional breakups.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having a judge say, okay, now I give you permission.
Somebody who doesn't even know you.
Doesn't even know you.
Yeah.
So that's when it hit me. Now, it hit me like I was like, well, what did I just get myself into?
I know.
I mean, now that I know, and so I started looking into it. And interestingly enough, the whole licensing process started, hundreds of years ago. And well, mostly it started in the 1800s, but there was ways to show certificates with the church even before that. States started getting into licensing marriage because they didn't want people from different ethnic backgrounds to marry each other, because women were not equal to men.
Right.
Women, for the longest part of this, even majority of the time that we've been in this country, women were not equal to men. The first when it says "we the people," they weren't referring to women at that point. And so women couldn't vote. Women couldn't get an education. Women were belonged in the kitchen, cooking and taking care of their husband.
They were like assets.
Right. It's like less than men. You're there to serve your husband.
Yeah.
And being a property, wanting to own property, we started licensing people.
Right.
The problem was the churches decided like they would marry sometimes people that were not of the same ethnicity, and states had a problem with that. So they wanted to give you permission, giving you permission in terms of a license, saying that I want to prove that both of you are white, so that's why you get a license for your marriage, and everyone gets. It's a very important title that they put on it, and only then would they honor that license if anything happened. Like, for example, if your husband died and you didn't have children old enough to take on the asset, they would, pass it on to you, but only if you had a license that they approved of. And that's where it comes from. It's not about the states being in it for money or anything like that. It turns into being money, a whole process. But it started with the philosophy that women are property, and that you are that's why you take on the man's name, and that that they want to ensure that both people are of the same race. Now, today's world, that is mostly irrelevant. In America, completely irrelevant. Does not matter at all. Nobody cares about that. Women are equal to men in every way. And there are some a little bit work left to do, and I'm not saying that everything is done, but for the vast majority of people,
we've evolved.
Progressed. We've progressed as a society. So the whole notion of a licensed marriage should not exist anymore, and that's one of the main points that I talk about often, that I talk in my book about, that I share with people. They know about this, and it's not that. And here's confusion. I have this problem, Sienna, that people think that I'm not a fan of marriage because I don't believe in the licensed marriage.
Right.
That's the biggest misconception.
Well, exactly. That's the concept that people have about marriage. It's just sign the license, not everything else. The experience, the partnership. That's not being married for them.
Correct. And so it's to the point right now that, I mean, if you have a license, usually what happens with that license is, so here's the benefit to society today. This is what people look forward to a license for, because it's a barrier for exit. Yeah. Everyone knows that it's very, very difficult and costly to get out of a licensed marriage. And people are so used to, or so worried about being alone, that they like to have that sense of liability.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, it's definitely that. I mean, I know that, and this is my part of research. Yours is Tinder, but mine is going to be the license. I know there are other reasons, such as like the assets, or maybe like I've heard from other people like, oh, if something happens to my spouse and he is in the hospital, I want to make sure that I can make decisions for him and not somebody else, different to our little family, or, cases like that involve property, or even the kids. But I agree with you. Like, if, you don't need to sign a license for all those aspects to be taken care of.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to mention this, that all those things that you mentioned, from property transfer to, rights of survivorship, All of these things that can happen, they can be made. A lot of it could be made with just the right wheels. Even if you go to the hospital, your current husband is incapacitated, and even though you don't have a licensed marriage, if he can fill out one form saying next of kin or whatever, and then they'll now honor you. I'll give you an example. When my dad had a heart attack and he was in the hospital, and my mom and him were separated at the time, he put on the form that his sister will have say so over his life, or whatever the case may be. And when my mom got to the hospital to bring us there, we were younger then, and she asked for an update on how my dad was doing. They told her at the hospital, sorry, ma'am, we and she has, and this is a licensed marriage. They were still licensed married at the time. And they told her at the hospital, sorry, ma'am, we can't talk to you about any details. We were given instruction on who the next of kin is. It's not you. Yeah. So it's just one form. So a lot of these things can be adjusted, and I'm glad you're going through law school right now and bring us some value on what the case studies are like, because it's interesting to know, like, where is the value added with having a license? Yeah. We know that you need it for, I have seen some examples of the military giving extra benefits to people that have a licensed marriage, like money to live on, etc. I have heard cases where we know people personally that had to sponsor people to come into this country. And you used the license to sponsor your husband to move to Spain. And there are some cases where medical insurance companies will cover you only if you're licensed marriage, but that's really, really changing, because I was in my previous relationship, I was covered under her insurance, and we never had a licensed marriage. Right. So, I mean, I know for a fact that that's something that's changing. Change, yeah. So the benefits to me are extremely, extremely slim, and only in specific cases. So the vast majority of people that are in a relationship, or that say this is their boyfriend or their girlfriend, the question is, what is the difference? What is the difference between having a boyfriend, a relationship, and then having a marriage? Well, before we get that, I wanted to mention, because as we were talking about it, I was thinking about this movie that we both watched, Marriage Story, remember? Yeah. And I think that analyzing the benefits and the downsides of a license, for most people, the downsides outweigh the benefits. And this movie is an example of that. And I would recommend it to people, like, to watch it, because it opened my eyes about the whole divorce thing, because it was an example of what you had told me. It was your personal experience, but it was also very interesting to me, because they had agreed on everything for the divorce. And as soon as they had to involve attorneys, it got messy. Yeah. And expensive. Well, attorneys benefit from it having a messy marriage. Yeah, divorce. I shouldn't say that, but but it's true, and we could find better ways for attorneys to benefit other than wasting people's money like that. Right. Well, if you do the work in the beginning, if this is what I wanted to talk about. Like, if you're starting a relationship with someone and you know that this person is you're going to have children with them, or you're going to spend a significant part of your life, hopefully forever with. Yeah. Or you don't even know, but you feel that person, it's a good person to be around. We've said before, like, forever can be 1 month, but maybe that's the happiest month of your life, Correct. So that's your forever. And if you feel that way, you can sign a license for that, but not the state license, though. Oh, just an agreement. Yes, an agreement. Yes. Yeah. And here's the thing. So going back to, like, the relationships and marriage, this is what I did. Yeah. When I started, I was like, well, if I view marriage as just a license, then I only had one. But if I take away the license, because it's completely irrelevant today, and I look back at my life, I've really had several marriages. Right. I've had several people that at the time I felt like I could be with forever, that I gave them a public acknowledgement, like a title, that I had intimacy and sex with. So it's kind of like those elements that we talked about, which is... Did you share the same beliefs? At the time, yes. At the time, when I was with my previous relationships, at all of the times I'm talking about, and this is probably, I want to say, this is going back to when I was like 19. Wow. Yeah. So I had a a girlfriend for a while there, and we thought that we were in completely love and we were gonna like be together forever, and we had all the great time. It didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 previous relationships prior to my marriage. After that one, so we're at the 3, plus my licensed marriage, and then I had 1 relationship after my marriage. So that's 5.
Yeah.
So I would say I was married 5 times.
Yeah.
Because if the rules are the same and the process is the same, then everything is the same.
I know. My question always is, what would change if you're in your life if you sign the license tomorrow, the following day, after the honeymoon? What's going to change other than your thousands of dollars in debt or poorer?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the whole thing. And the people that I talk to, I get 2 major responses from this. Number 1 is it's not real by society standards if we don't have a license. And number 2,
true,
it's a barrier to exit. Like, so if you don't have a license, you're living a lie. That's what a lot of people believe.
Yeah.
You're not truly married. And number 2 is, they want the barrier to exit.
Yeah.
Now, marriage and weddings are usually a religious function.
Well, but I wouldn't put it together because I do like weddings.
I love weddings. I want to go to a wedding.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go to your wedding.
or the bachelor party.
I don't really like bachelor parties.
Okay.
To me, it's a little overrated. It's not the right time. It's always like out of place. Like I love the love part of it. So I want to, do something like, anyway.
We got to talk about it because isn't it interesting how, because you're going to get married, you need one last night of, letting loose and being free. And isn't it weird? Like to me, it's like,
I don't get it at all.
It sounds like you're going to jail or something.
When I was getting my licensed marriage, I just completely did not want anything to do with a bachelor party, but everybody that was around me felt like they needed to,
right,
to do this for me. And then I invited my then fiance to come to the bachelor party with me because I was just so much in love. I'm like that kind of guy. Like I'm just like, I'm all in. Like, I had no interest in it. And not that I had my fair share of strip club days. So I'm not a saint by any means.
And now you're going to have Tinder.
I that's debatable. That's up for debate. I'm in the single life. I don't know what to do, but the thing is that I recognize, I honor all relationships that I'm committed to, as a wife.
Yeah, you go all in.
Yes, absolutely. And when I finished my when I was out of my relationship with my previous licensed marriage, and I got into a relationship with my previous relationship. The first thing I said was, I don't know how long we're going to have. We're not going to have forever. I probably don't think we're going to last forever. If you see the book I'm writing, if you see what I'm talking about, I don't think we're going to last like that. I think that we should focus on other things.
Yeah.
Like our mutual flourishing, the joys and pleasures that we bring each other, and also like personal growth. Having a relationship for personal growth is the most important part of the relationship. So this is what I wanted to say before we get to our question here today.
Yeah.
Is that when you're in a relationship or a marriage or a friendship, all can affect change in your life. All can let you see places, parts of people that allow you to have the same experience, a completely different experience from the same situation. It could be walking a mountain. It could be, hiking.
Yeah.
It could be anything, but it changes your perspective so much. And I think that being married is the highest part of human flourishing for me, because it allows you to get next to another soul and really interact and change your life and gain their views and gain everything from them. So, but it's indefinite. So the sad part is that it doesn't. It's not. I don't want to call it sad. The reality is it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And people want it to last forever. So
that's what's sad.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That we've been told that it should be forever, but it's really indefinite. So all relationships the focus should be from your friendships to your relationships and marriages, and I call them all relationships, marriages. So you'll hear me say that from time to time, but
that doesn't necessarily mean licensed.
No, it does not mean licensed.
Yes.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So that should be your main focus on how are you growing from this scenario, like this situation, and and knowing for sure, in all likeliness, it will probably not stay the way you think the flourishing marriage is staying.
Right.
So it just dies out. It's time for you to move on and learn and grow and go. So it's my difference of philosophy, because I know a lot of people want to hear that, you know, you're going to be together forever. And this is a show about marriage and being all in and relationships. And this is the secrets of being married forever. Well, that's not the secret.
Yeah.
The understanding is marriages and relationships and friendships do not last forever.
Yeah.
They're all indefinite and for an unspecified amount of time.
Exactly.
Okay, so do you want to read our questions for today? Like, let's read this question.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. So it's our friend Stephanie, who lives in Pennsylvania with her longtime boyfriend and their beautiful daughter. Okay. For the longest time, Stephanie says, I have wanted my boyfriend to ask me to marry me. I have given him all the hints. I have tried on rings with that we were taught when we were walking through the mall. I brought up the topic on numerous occasions. At first, he was using the excuse that we needed to save money to buy a house. And so we did, and I waited. Then he wanted to save to pay off some debts. And now I am growing frustrated and even offered to skip the wedding and just get married in the courthouse. With all my efforts and family pressure, he still comes up with excuse after excuse. At this point, I don't know what he is so worried about. What can I do to finally get married and be settled in my marriage?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Stephanie.
Yes.
And, you know, Stephanie, what we were talking about right now, you are already married.
Yes.
You're already married in every single way.
They own a house. They have a daughter.
They live together.
They love each other.
Right. They are married. That is marriage. That is what you're supposed to do. So first thing you need to do, Stephanie, is realize that the license that you're thinking that you don't need anymore. We live in a good country, a great country that you're equal to your spouse in every way. And you have the ability to not need the license, not need permission from any state to be with anyone. You can live with anyone. In other countries, by the way, you cannot live with someone unless you have their license from the state.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, but here, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you're already married. And then the other question is why doesn't he, the guy, want to actually get a license with you? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there are multiple reasons that could happen. We would need to, talk to him and find out. But some people just don't want the license. Like if you ask me right now, I don't need the license. So why would I get it? Because I know that, everything, I mean, relationships are indefinite. So why are we going to go through when we decide to break up? If we decide to break up. Yes. Yeah. And it's true. It is an if, and it's true. It doesn't always happen. And it doesn't mean that if you truly believe in the forever, in your forever, which means happily ever after, it doesn't mean that you're going to break up. But if it happens, you're going to make everything even more complicated than it already is, because then you have to involve attorneys. You have to involve, like you were saying, a judge who doesn't even know you, and he has to make a decision for you. It's almost like a crime, because that's what judges do when there's crimes involved,
right.
And I don't know, like, honestly, Stephanie, I think that you should just be happy with what you have. It seems like you have a very good life, and don't feel frustrated, because I think that energy you could focus on being and enjoying your life and your family. That would be better for you and for your spouse in this case, and your daughter.
Yeah, and I will add, you are all in on your relationship,
exactly.
and your marriage, because you do own a house together.
Yeah,
you guys have two
dogs,
fur babies together. So in every way, you're taking it very serious and enjoying your time, which is admirable. But yeah, you don't need a license, and it's working well for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And Stephanie, I will say this: I mean, the focus is not to get a license. You are in every way already married. It is your state of mind. But what I would tell you to do is this: write down what you're most, what you appreciate the most about your in this case boyfriend, but I call him your husband. Write down what you admire the most about him. write down the times that you flourish the most together, or that you guys find each other in the most pleasurable experiences. And I want you to focus on just spending time enjoying your marriage, enjoying the growth that you're getting from him. Let him see the part of you that he appreciates, and talk about this stuff together, because the relationship is where this moment in life is your marriage. This is what you should be focused on. It's not like some imaginary place that you get to after you sign a license and then you start a life together. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is the personal growth, the flourishing that you're getting right now, the pleasure that you're bringing each other. That's what should be your focus, not on getting a license. So I will say, focus on those things. Write them down together. Talk about it, and just be honest with each other. And I think that you'll enjoy your marriage already in a great way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I really do see a future where your daughter grows up, and 30 years from now or so, no one seeks a license anymore. I mean, it's completely a relic of the past.
Yeah.
It would be something that nobody will do. But instead, we will understand that all of these relationships that we've had all our lives, all these where you have a long time, quote unquote, boyfriend that you live together with, that you share a life with, that is a marriage.
Yes.
And you should treat it that way.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing how some people say, well, we're together, we're doing everything married couples do, we're expected to act every way a married couple, but we're not serious. Like we're not going to get married anytime soon.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's okay. Enjoy your life, and signing a document cannot define your happiness or for you to be content, or using it as an accomplishment, right? When you have such a great life, and I don't know, like you've already accomplished more than most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are some things that I want to conclude with is that relationships are things that you have with anyone. It could be a colleague, it could be a friend, it could be a sexual partner, it could be anything. These are all relationships. But marriage to me has found its way, like I summarized it by saying, this is when these four elements come together. When you have a public acknowledgement that that's your person, you can use whatever title you want. It's the same thing. When you have sex and intimacy, when you have intimacy, and when you have the same shared belief. And that belief tends to be that we are going to be in this forever. But as long as you're saying, well, we're going to be indefinite. So as long as we're okay, it's just still the same thing.
Maybe that's the case here. Maybe they don't have the same shared beliefs. Like what's a marriage for him is not exactly what's a marriage for Stephanie.
I will tell you that being married before, licensed married before, is that a lot of people that's been down the path before talk to you and they say, listen, before you do it, make sure you know what you're doing, because the license has hurt far more people than it's ever helped. Yeah. And I couldn't even give you examples on where it helped anyone, but I can tell you tons of examples where it punishes people. And even right now, people are choosing to stay miserable in relationships because the thought of having to lose all that they work for, or having to rip assets apart and then hire expensive attorneys, and then the attorneys get everything and they get nothing but a judge granting them permission that they can break up. Like that seems too daunting, so they actively stay in misery. So
that's sad.
Yeah, if we do one thing with this podcast is letting people understand that they can get the most out of their marriage without having a license and just seeking the flourishing and just seeking the growth, then I think we've done our job here. Yeah. But there's a lot of work to do and a lot of topics to talk about. So yeah.
It's crazy. I hope we can help Stephanie and people like her with this podcast.
Yeah, and then it remains to be seen. And by the way, this open discussion that we're having, I mean, when we get questions and we learn from our audience, I'm more than willing to change my mind.
Absolutely. Of course. We might be wrong.
We could be wrong on all of this. I'm more than willing to change my mind. I do not have it all figured out. I don't know everything about life. I just know what works and what I've seen to work, and I'm sharing my views. And I'm open to listening to what other people have to say about this. I've been doing this for the last 6 years. And it just confirms more what I'm talking about rather than change my mind. But I'm more than willing to get any feedback that you have for me.
I'll definitely will continue to do research about this topic to have some legal insight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the legal insight on this. Yeah, because we're going to be revisiting. So that's our show. And I just wanted to thank you for listening. And
yes, thank you.
I just want to thank our sponsor, American Worldwide Academy. If you know anyone that needs help getting their high school diploma or get online career training, log on to careerhighschool.com and go through it. It's an amazing school. And good luck and see you soon.
Bye.
You've been listening to All Indefinitely. Help us spread the word by subscribing and sharing the show.